I didn't realize I was jealous at first. That's the thing that still messes with my head when I think back on it. If you'd asked me back then, I would have laughed and said I was the straightest guy I knew. I dated women. I slept with women. I complained about women with my friends. I had zero doubts about that part of myself. Zero. So when that tight, uncomfortable feeling started creeping into my chest, jealousy wasn't the word I used. I told myself it was something else. Annoyance. Displacement. Maybe even protectiveness. Anything but what it actually was. It started the night my best friend introduced us. Her name was Hannah. We'd been friends since college, late-night pizza, shared hardships, the kind of bond where people constantly assumed we were more than friends or would become something else someday. We never did. Not even close. She was family to me. So when she texted me, "I'm bringing someone tonight. Be nice," I didn't think much of it. I assumed another guy I'd half ignore while pretending to be supportive. We met at our usual bar. Same cracked leather booths. Same bartender who knew our orders. Same dumb neon sign flickering in the corner like it had been dying for years. Hannah walked in first. Then he followed. How? I remember noticing him the way you notice good lighting in a room subtle, but immediately changing the atmosphere. He wasn't loud. Didn't announce himself. He just moved like he belonged wherever he was standing. Tall, but not in a showy way. Relaxed shoulders. Calm eyes. The kind of guy who listens before he speaks. "Miles, this is Theo," Hannah said, beaming. "Theo, this is the guy I told you about. The guy I told you about." That alone should have been my first warning sign. Theo smiled at me. Not polite smile, not forced. Real. Easy. He shook my hand, firm but not competitive. "Nice to finally meet you," he said. Finally. I ignored the weird flicker in my stomach and ordered another beer. The night went on like any other. Conversation flowed. Jokes landed. Theo wasn't trying to impress anyone, which somehow made him impossible to ignore. He laughed at Hannah's dumb stories. Remembered details. Put his hand on her lower back when they stood close. That's when it hit me. Not attraction. Not yet. Jealousy. But not toward her. I wasn't mad that Hannah had a boyfriend. I wasn't scared of losing her. What twisted my stomach was the way she leaned into him. The way she looked at him like he made the room quieter. Like he grounded her. I watched his hand on her back and thought, that should be me. Not dating her. Standing where he was. It didn't make sense. I didn't want Hannah. I'd never wanted her. But every time Theo touched her casually, confidently, I felt something sharp and uncomfortable pull through my chest. I caught myself watching him when he wasn't talking. The way his jaw tightened when he focused. The way he listened like he actually gave a damn. At one point, Hannah went to the bathroom, leaving us alone at the table. Silence settled between us, but it wasn't awkward. "So," Theo said, glancing at me, "she talks about you a lot." I snorted. "That's probably not a good thing." He smiled. "It is. Means you matter." Something about the way he said that made my throat go dry. I took a sip of my beer, buying time. "How long you two been together?" "Almost a year," he said. "Feels longer." In a good way. There was again that tight feeling. A year. I nodded, pretending that didn't bother me. Pretending I didn't want to know everything about him. Pretending I wasn't suddenly very aware of how close he was sitting. When Hannah came back, Theo immediately turned to her, asked if she was okay, slid his hand back to her waist like it was muscle memory. And I felt it again. That sick, undeniable pull. Not toward her. Toward him. That night, lying in bed, I replayed the evening in my head. His voice. His smile. The way he looked at me when he spoke, like he was actually seeing me. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself I was tired. Drunk. Overthinking. I definitely didn't tell myself the truth. Because the truth was terrifying. And once the thought crossed my mind, it refused to leave. I wasn't jealous of my friend. I was jealous of the man who got to stand next to him. I tried to shake it off the next morning. Woke up, showered, went to work, did all the normal routines I'd done 1,000 times before. Coffee, emails, half listening to coworkers talk about their weekends like it was background noise. But Theo was still there. Not physically. Worse. In my head. I kept replaying small, stupid moments from the night before. The way he leaned forward when he laughed. The calm certainty in his voice. How natural it looked when Hannah rested her head against his shoulder, like she trusted him without thinking twice. And every time my brain drifted there, my chest tightened again. That was the part one couldn't explain. I wasn't lost in explicit thoughts. I wasn't picturing anything physical or replaying details in my mind. It was subtler than that, more unsettling. I wanted his place, his position. I wanted to be the one he leaned toward, the one he listened to like that. At lunch, Hannah texted me. "Hannah, you were quiet last night. Everything good?" I stared at the message longer than necessary. "Me, yeah. Just tired." "He seems solid." The word slipped out before I could stop it. "Solid." She responded almost immediately. "Hannah, he is. I'm really happy, Miles." There it was. The thing I was supposed to feel too. I typed, "I'm glad," and meant it. I really did. I loved her. I wanted her happy. So why did it feel like I'd lost something? Over the next few weeks, Theo became a regular part of my life. Group dinners, movie nights, casual drinks. He fit in effortlessly, like he'd always been there and we'd just taken a while to notice. And the worst part? He was good to her. Attentive without being overbearing. Protective without being possessive. The kind of guy people secretly compare their own partners to and come up short. I told myself my discomfort was about change, about dynamics shifting, about being the third wheel. Except, I wasn't uncomfortable around them together. I was uncomfortable around him. Because every time Theo and I ended up alone, even briefly, I felt exposed in a way I didn't understand. One night, Hannah went to grab drink from the kitchen, leaving us on her couch. Some dumb show played in the background. Theo leaned back, stretching his arm along the backrest, not touching me, but close enough that I noticed. "You okay?" he asked casually. "Yeah," I said too quickly. "Why? You've been quiet again." I shrugged. "Guess I'm just not used to sharing you." It came out as a joke. Half a joke. He smiled, but it wasn't teasing. It was thoughtful. "Yeah, that makes sense." He didn't say don't worry. Didn't say it's nothing. He just accepted it. That acceptance hit me harder than reassurance would have. A few minutes later, Hannah came back, and the moment was gone. But the feeling stayed. That night, lying in bed, I asked myself a question I'd never seriously asked before. What if this isn't about Hannah at all? The answer came too fast. I tried dating again. Forced myself onto apps. Went on a couple of dates with women who were perfectly nice, perfectly attractive, perfectly wrong. I listened to them talk and found myself wondering what Theo would say in that situation. How he'd react. Whether he'd laugh. That's when the panic set in. Because jealousy made sense when it was about someone you wanted. But this meant something else entirely. I wasn't competing for Hannah. I was measuring myself against him. And every time I did, the realization got clearer and more terrifying. I didn't want what he had. I wanted to be the one he chose. I just wasn't ready to admit what that said about me. Not yet. The first crack happened on a Tuesday night. Nothing dramatic. No alcohol. No dim lighting or charged music in the background. Just the three of us in Hannah's apartment. Takeout containers spread across the coffee table. Some half-watched documentary playing on Netflix. Normal. Safe. Theo was sitting on the floor, back against the couch, scrolling through something on his phone. Hannah was beside me, leaning into my shoulder, absent-mindedly stealing fries from my plate like she'd done 1,000 times before. I should have felt comfortable. Instead, I felt aware. Theo laughed at something on his screen and looked up at me automatically, like I was the person he wanted to show it to. He turned the phone slightly in my direction. "Look at this," he said. Our eyes met, just for a second, but something in that look landed differently. Too direct, too intentional, not flirty worse. Familiar. Like recognition. My stomach flipped. I leaned forward to look at the screen, and when I did, our shoulders brushed. Barely. Accidentally. Electric. I froze. He didn't pull away. Didn't flinch. Just glanced at me, quick and curious, like he felt it too and was checking to see if I'd noticed. I had. I straightened up too fast, knocking my knee into the table. Hannah laughed, teasing me for being clumsy, and the moment dissolved but not inside me. Inside, everything was loud. That night, after I got home, I didn't turn on the TV. Didn't scroll. Didn't distract myself. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the floor, replaying that second over and over again. The touch wasn't physical in that way. That was the problem. It felt intimate, and I couldn't explain why. I'd brushed against women before without thinking twice. Hugs, hands, legs tangled on couches. Normal stuff. Harmless. But this had made my pulse spike. Made my body react before my brain could catch up. I pressed my palms into my thighs, grounding myself. Get a grip, I muttered out loud. But I didn't believe it. A few days later, Hannah asked me to walk Theo to his car while she finished getting ready. He'd forgotten his jacket, and she tossed it to him from the bedroom, yelling something about being 5 minutes. We stood by the door in awkward silence. Cold tonight, he said. Yeah, I replied. Guess winter's finally here. Smooth. Real smooth. He smiled, then hesitated. Hey, can I ask you something? My heart kicked hard enough to be annoying. Sure. He shifted his weight, suddenly less relaxed than usual. Do you not like me? The question caught me off guard. What? No. Why would you think that? He shrugged. You're just different around me sometimes. Like you're holding something back. I laughed too quickly. Man, you're dating my best friend. I'm just trying not to be weird. That's the thing, he said gently. You don't come off weird. You come off careful. Careful. The word landed right where it hurt. I opened my mouth, closed it again. I don't know what you want me to say. Theo studied me for a second, eyes searching, like he was deciding whether to push or back off. Then Hannah called from the bedroom. Keys. Where are my keys? He exhaled, the tension easing. Never mind. Forget it. But I couldn't. On the walk to his car, the night air felt sharper than usual. We talked about nothing, traffic, work, some movie he wanted to see, but everything felt loaded. Before he got in, he turned to me. You know you can talk to me, right? I nodded. Yeah, I know. He held my gaze a second longer than necessary. Good, he said quietly. I mean it. He drove off, taillights disappearing down the street. I stood there long after, hands shoved into my jacket pockets, heart racing like I'd just done something reckless. That was the moment I stopped lying to myself. Not about being curious, not about being confused, but about why it was him. It wasn't random. It wasn't jealousy anymore. It was desire, slow, unwanted, undeniable, building in the space where certainty used to be. And the scariest part? I didn't want it to stop. I just had no idea what I was supposed to do next. Avoiding him didn't work. I tried, though. God, I tried. I skipped a couple of group hangouts, claimed work deadlines, headaches, a fake cold that lasted suspiciously long. Hannah didn't push, she never did, but I could hear the question sitting behind her voice every time we talked. How naughty? Of course he did. One night, about a week after I'd started pulling back, my phone buzzed. How? Hey, did I do something wrong? I stared at the message like it was radioactive. My first instinct was to lie. Say no. Say I'd just been busy. Say literally anything that would keep this from becoming real. Instead, I typed, me no. You didn't. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Theo. Then why does it feel like you're avoiding me? My chest tightened. I could have stopped there. Could have let the conversation die. But something in me, some exhausted, overextended part of my brain was tired of running. Me. Can we talk in person? The reply came almost instantly. How? EA. When? We met the next evening at a small park near my apartment. Neutral ground. Public. Safe. I told myself all the things people tell themselves when they're lying. Theo was already there when I arrived, sitting on a bench with his hands clasped loosely between his knees. He looked up when he saw me, relief flashing across his face before he masked it. Hey, he said. Hey. We sat down, leaving a respectful amount of space between us. Too much space. It felt intentional. For a minute, neither of us spoke. Then Theo broke the silence. I've been worried. I know, I said. I'm sorry. He shook his head. Don't apologize yet. Just tell me what's going on. I stared at the ground, watching a couple walk past with their dog. Normal life. Normal problems. I don't know how to say this without making it weird, I said. His voice was calm, steady. Try. I took a breath that felt like it scraped my lungs on the way out. This isn't about Hannah, I said. I need you to know that first. His jaw tightened not defensively, but thoughtfully. Okay. I've been trying to figure out why I feel the way I do when I'm around you, I continued. At first, I thought I was just adjusting, or being territorial, or whatever. And now, he asked quietly. I finally looked at him, and now I think I'm jealous because I want what you have. The words sat between us, heavy and unmistakable. Theo didn't interrupt, didn't jump to conclusions. He just waited. I don't mean your relationship, I added quickly. I mean, the way you move through the world. The way people dash, I swallowed. The way I respond to you. His eyes softened, but there was confusion there too. Miles, I've never felt like this about a guy before, I said, my voice dropping. And I don't know what it means. I don't know what that makes me. All I know is that being around you makes me feel exposed. Like you're holding up a mirror I didn't ask for. Theo leaned back slightly, processing. And you think avoiding me will fix that? I hoped, I admitted. A sad smile tugged at his mouth. Has it? No. Silence again. Not awkward. Careful. After a moment, he spoke. I need to be very clear about something. I nodded. Okay. I care about you, he said. Genuinely. But Hannah is my partner. I'm not confused about that. And I don't want to hurt her. I know, I said immediately. I don't want that either. He studied me, searching for cracks, for dishonesty. Then what are you asking for? He asked. The truth came out before I could soften it. I don't know. I think I just needed you to know I wasn't pushing you away because I didn't like you. His expression changed at that, something warm flickering behind his eyes. I never thought that, he said. I thought maybe I made you uncomfortable. You did, I said with a weak laugh. Just not in the way you think. He smiled and sobered. You're dealing with something big. Yeah. And you don't have to do it alone, he added gently. But I need you to promise me something. What? That if this starts to hurt you or Hannah, you will say something. You won't just disappear. I nodded, throat tight. I promise. We sat there a little longer, talking about lighter things. Work. Movies. Nothing loaded. Nothing dangerous. When we stood to leave, Theo hesitated. He stepped forward and pulled me into a hug. It was brief. Appropriate. Friendly. And still, my hands clenched for half a second before I forced myself to relax. He felt solid, warm, familiar. When he pulled back, his hands lingered on my shoulders just a beat longer than necessary. You'll be okay, he said. I wanted to believe him. As I walked home, one thing became painfully clear. Admitting the truth hadn't made it easier. It had made it real. And now, there was no going back to the version of me who'd never questioned who he was or who he wanted to be seen by. The problem with awareness is that once it's there, it doesn't shut up. After that conversation, everything felt sharper, louder, like someone had turned up the contrast on my life, and I couldn't turn it back down. I noticed the way I reacted to things now, how my body responded before my brain could intervene, especially around him. I kept my promise. I didn't disappear. Group hangouts resumed, careful and slightly off balance, like we were all walking around something fragile in the center of the room. Hannah was happy lighter than she'd been in years, and I hated myself a little for how much that complicated things. Theo treated me the same as always, maybe a little gentler, a little more aware, but never inappropriate, never crossing a line, which somehow made it harder. One night, the three of us were cooking dinner at Hannah's place. Music playing softly, wine open. Theo was chopping vegetables at the counter while Hannah argued with him about garlic ratios like it was a matter of national security. I leaned against the doorway, watching them, and for the first time, the jealousy shifted. It wasn't sharp anymore. It was heavy, because I didn't want to take his place. I didn't want to replace Hannah. I didn't even want what they had. I wanted something that didn't exist. I wanted the version of Theo who looked at me the way he looked at her, not with romance or desire, but with that quiet certainty, that ease, that sense of choice. Later, Hannah went to grab something from the store downstairs. Be back in 10, she said, grabbing her keys. Theo and I were left alone again. I tensed automatically, bracing for the familiar discomfort, but it didn't come. Instead, there was something calmer, sadder. Theo leaned back against the counter, arms crossed. You've been different, he said. I sighed. Good different or bad different? Honest different. I laughed softly. Yeah, that tracks. He studied me for a moment. How are you holding up? The fact that he asked, really asked, nearly undid me. I'm figuring things out, I said carefully. About myself. Do you want to talk about it? I hesitated, then shook my head. Not yet. He nodded. No pressure. No disappointment. I'm glad you're here, he said simply. Those 5 words hit me harder than any confession could have. I'm glad too, I replied, and meant it. That night, when I got home, I did something I'd been avoiding for weeks. I opened my laptop. Not dating apps. Not distractions. I searched words I'd never typed before. Stories that felt uncomfortably close. Questions I'd been scared to ask. And for the first time, I didn't feel like an imposter. I didn't label myself. Didn't rush toward answers. But I stopped running from the question. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't about Theo anymore. He wasn't the cause. He was the catalyst. The person who cracked something open that had been sealed shut my entire life. And whether I liked it or not, I was standing at the edge of truth I couldn't unsee. One that would eventually force me to decide who I was willing to be honest with, including myself. The breaking point didn't come in a dramatic way. No yelling, no tears, no moment where everything exploded all at once. It came quietly, which somehow made it worse. Hannah invited me over one evening like she always did, casual, low-key, just dinner and a movie. I almost said no out of habit, then stopped myself. I was tired of avoiding things. Tired of acting like proximity was the problem. Theo answered the door. He smiled when he saw me, genuine and warm, and something in my chest tightened in that familiar way. Not panic this time. Recognition. Dinner was easy. Too easy. We joked, teased each other, fell into that comfortable rhythm that only happens when people genuinely like being around one another. At one point, Theo reached across the table to refill my glass without asking automatic. Thoughtful. I thanked him, and our fingers brushed. Again. This time, I didn't pull away. Neither did he. It lasted maybe half a second longer than it should have. Hannah didn't notice, but Theo did. I saw it in his eyes, a quick flicker of awareness, then restraint snapping back into place. He withdrew his hand and sat back, jaw tight, like he'd just reminded himself of something important. The rest of the night felt off. Not awkward. Careful. Like we were all playing roles we knew too well. After dinner, Hannah curled up on the couch with a blanket, halfway asleep before the movie even hit the halfway mark. At some point, she mumbled something about an early morning and disappeared into the bedroom. Theo muted the TV. Silence settled over the room. "This feels familiar," he said quietly. I nodded. Yeah. We sat there, feet planted on the floor, space between us that felt intentional and unbearable at the same time. "Miles," he said, turning toward me, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." My heart started pounding. "Okay." He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Are you okay being around me like this?" I swallowed. "Define okay." He exhaled. "Are you hurting?" The question landed hard. I could have lied. I was good at that. Had years of practice. But something in me was done pretending. "Yes," I said. "A little." He nodded slowly, like he'd expected that answer. "I don't want to be the reason you're stuck." "You're not," I said immediately. "You're just the reason I noticed." He studied me for a long moment. "You don't have to figure everything out tonight." "I know," I said, "but I can't unfeel it anymore. Or unknow it." Theo leaned back, rubbing a hand over his face. He looked tired, not annoyed, not uncomfortable. "Just human." "I care about you," he said again. "That hasn't changed. But I need to keep my boundaries clear. For Hannah. And for you." "I get that," I said. And I did. There was a pause. Heavy. Honest. Then he added, softly, "But whatever you're discovering about yourself, it's real. Don't talk yourself out of it just because it scares you." That was it. That was the moment something finally shifted. Not because he chose me. Not because anything happened between us. But because he saw me and didn't flinch. I stood up, suddenly needing air. I should head out. He stood too. Walk safe. At the door, I hesitated. Turned back to him. "Thank you," I said, "for not making me feel crazy." He smiled, small and sincere. "You're not." When I stepped outside, the night felt different. Lighter, like something had loosened its grip on my chest. For the first time, the question wasn't what am I? It was who do I want to be honest with next? And that answer scared me, but not enough to stop me anymore. I came out of Hannah a week later. Not in a big, dramatic way. No tears, no rehearsed speech. Just the two of us sitting on her couch, wine glasses half full, some dumb reality show playing in the background. Neither of us was actually watching. There was a pause in the conversation, one of those natural lulls, and before I could overthink it, I said, I need to tell you something. She muted the TV immediately. That alone almost broke me. I told her the truth. Not all of it. Not about Theo specifically, that wasn't mine to put on her. But I told her about the confusion, the jealousy that didn't make sense, the realization that maybe I wasn't as straight as I'd always assumed. My voice shook. I hated that it did. She listened without interrupting. No judgment. No soak. Just Hannah being Hannah. When I finished, I stared at my hands, waiting for the moment everything changed. Instead, she reached over and squeezed my knee. Thank you for trusting me, she said. I looked up. You are not mad. She laughed softly. About you figuring yourself out? God, no. I'm proud of you. The relief hit me so hard I had to blink a few times to keep it together. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said, exhaling. I think I am. Later that night, after I left, my phone buzzed. Theo, Hannah told me you talked. I stared at the message, heart racing. Me? Yeah. A few seconds passed. Theo, I'm glad you did. That was it. No complications. No secrets. No lines crossed. Just honesty. And somehow that was enough. Weeks turned into months. Life kept moving. Nothing exploded. No one disappeared. Theo and I found a new balance, still close, still honest, but steadier now. Less charged. Healthier. And something else happened too. Inuti said me differently. Not every man. Not constantly. But enough that I stopped pretending it was nothing. I went on my first real date with a guy a few months later. Awkward. Nervous. Uneventful in the best way. It felt right. Not because it erased everything that came before, but because it finally aligned with it. Sometimes I still think about that first night. About the moment jealousy crept in and I didn't recognize it for what it was. About how I thought I was losing my best friend, when really I was losing a version of myself that no longer fit. I didn't stop being me. I just stopped lying. And weirdly enough, the man I was jealous of never took anything from me. He showed me where to look.